Sup guys, it's Alex here and welcome to another Bracketology update. This one I'm making it on December 11th, but it was the December 10th edition of the Bracketology update from Joe Lunardi. Just had a ton of stuff going on yesterday. But man, I am excited for another weekend of college basketball. But before I do, I just want to say prayers up to Mayfield, Kentucky. It's about 2 hours away from me since you guys know I live in Kentucky. But they got absolutely destroyed by a tornado last night. There's at least 50 people that have died and up to over 100. I know a lot of people watching these videos aren't from around the area, but just if you could get prayers for Mayfield, Kentucky, that's a small town outside of Bowling Green. Man, it's just rough out there. But yep, that's just one thing I wanted to bring up. Crazy storms last night. But anyway, going back into the Bracketology here. Another crazy week of college basketball with surprising results. I mean, we had number one Purdue, who was number one for a week. And last week I got a lot of flack for not having them win the national championship in my Bracketology prediction. But I mean, hey, look what happened. They just lost to Rutgers on their road. Rutgers, I think, was like 4-4. That team was going nowhere fast and then somehow got a huge win over Purdue. Then we also had Virginia losing to James Madison somehow. And then we also had Florida getting beat by double digits at home to Texas Southern. Or I don't think it was at home, maybe it was at Texas Southern. But either way, losing by double digits to Texas Southern, who hadn't won a game before that. They were literally defeated. They were like 0-7, I think, at that point, and somehow beat Florida. I don't know, college basketball is crazy, but that's why we all love it. Taking a look here at the Bracketology, we'll kind of take a look here at the Bubble Watch, or Bracket Watch, I should say. Top overall seed is now Baylor. I mean, this has been changing every single week we do it. We've had Duke, we've had Gonzaga, we've had Purdue, and now we have Baylor. They're just kind of next team up, if you want to say it kind of like that. First team out is Mississippi State, and then the last team in is Northwestern. So taking a look at the Bubble Watch, last four byes are Oklahoma, who have a big game today against Arkansas, San Francisco, Louisville, who's probably going to be falling out because this was made yesterday, and then last night they lost at home to DePaul, so I don't even know what's going on with that Louisville program. They've lost their president and athletic director. I'm an alumni from there, so I mean, I know what's going on there. But man, that program, the athletic program is just in shambles there. But that's another story for another day. Then we got West Virginia. Last four in are Florida State, Wake Forest, Memphis, who lost at home to Murray State. Memphis, 4-4 now, I believe. Either maybe 4-4, 5-4, something like that. Either way, that team is just plummeting right now. There's even internal issues in the team. Penny Hardaway yelling at his players for not being mature enough and not wanting to contribute and all that. That team, I don't even know. They have tons of talent, but they are just they're not even worth discussing. I'm moving on from there at this point. Northwestern as last team in there. First four out are Mississippi State, Wichita State, Washington State, a lot of states there, and then Texas A&M. Next four out are Utah State, Cincinnati, San Diego State, and Minnesota. So taking a look here at the bracket over in the South Regional, as you see, Baylor is now back to being the is now the number one overall seed. And then Florida's down 2-8 after I mentioned they had lost to Texas Southern. Colorado State up to a 9. They have Wisconsin up to a 5. There is a huge college basketball game today. I'm making this video, as you can see, at 10:34. This game is at noon. Wisconsin versus Ohio State. This game is going to show us a lot about both teams. I'm really excited to see what happens. Then Arkansas down to 4. They play Oklahoma in a pretty big game, as I mentioned earlier as well. BYU up to a 6. Houston down to a 3, Arizona up to a 2, and then Texas State new to the field as a 15. Arizona's been a team that has been impressing me a lot recently. They have another big game against Illinois that Fox has been promoting all week with all the shows and stuff. But then over there in the East Regional, we have Texas Tech up to an 8, Indiana down to a 9, Chattanooga up to a 12 as the automatic qualifier, Ohio State down to a 6, San Francisco up to an 11. They're now in the last four byes, as you saw on the bracket watch. North Carolina up to a 7, Loyola Chicago up to a 10, and then we have Wagner up to a 15. So then moving on down to the West Regional in San Francisco, we have Marquette. As you guys know, they're one of my favorite teams, kind of sleeper teams to make a run in the tournament. I think I had them just making a crazy run as a 7 seed to the Final Four in last week's Bracketology. Then we also have Iowa down to a 9 after getting blown out by Iowa State, their rival. LSU up to a 5. That team somehow is number 2 in the net rankings. I got to check their schedule again at some point, see how that got put together. Iowa State now up to a 4. Seton Hall up to a 6. West Virginia up to an 11. Kentucky up to a 3, who has a big game against Notre Dame today. And then South Dakota State down to a 14. Michigan up to a 7. Then over there in the Midwest Regional, we have St. Bonaventure falling down to an 8, Providence up to a 9, Texas down to a 5. They suffered a loss this week. I can't remember off the top of my head who it was to, but I just remember seeing it. And then we have in the playing game, Wake Forest new to the field, and then Memphis, as I mentioned, I've already talked about them. Tennessee down to a 4, Ohio down to a 13, Connecticut down to a 6, Florida State down to an 11, and then Northwestern's new to the field. Alabama up to a 3 after that crazy win over Gonzaga. Not even sure how that happened, but I mean, hey, props to Alabama. That was a huge win for them over Gonzaga. I should have mentioned that at the top of the video. I don't know why I didn't. We have Illinois up to a 7, and then Virginia Tech down to a 10. So the moment you guys have all been waiting for, my bracket predictions based off of this bracketology. As you guys know, every single bracketology that I do, I just create an Excel bracket and then just walk through my predictions on it. I think it's a fun thing to do. Pretty harmless and all that. Have some fun here in December before people really start paying attention to college basketball once the college football season ends and then the NFL ends. But yeah, let's go and get this show kicked off. So we'll have Baylor obviously moving on past the winner of Texas Southern and Norfolk State. Florida will lose to Colorado State there. Wisconsin, I think, can beat Belmont, and then Arkansas will beat Weber State. Then we're going to go with BYU here, moving on past Louisville, along with Houston over Oakland. Then I'm going to go with Oklahoma here. I know that Xavier did beat Ohio State earlier in the season, but I've been watching Oklahoma with Porter Moser. They've been putting together some strong performances as of late. Then we're going to go with Arizona here, moving on past Texas State. Then for a spot in the Sweet 16, we got Baylor moving on past Colorado State. I am going to go with Wisconsin here, moving on past Arkansas. Then we're going to have Houston moving on past BYU. And then, I have Houston, or no, that was Arizona. I don't know what's going on there. Why is that being, okay, you're just going to have to imagine this being, I don't know what's happening there. But we are going to have Arizona here moving on past Texas State. All right, yeah. So we're going to have Oklahoma versus Arizona there. So up here, we're going to have Houston moving on past BYU. Then Arizona, I don't know why this is happening there. Arizona is going to be moving on past Oklahoma. Then for a spot in the Elite Eight, we're going to have Baylor here moving on past Wisconsin. And then we're also going to have, I want to go Houston or Houston. I'll go with Houston over Arizona, though, moving on to the Elite Eight. But then for a spot in the actual Final Four, we are going to go with Baylor. So then moving on down to the next region here, we're going to have Purdue moving on past Campbell. Then we are also going to have St. Bonaventure, I think, moving on past Providence. We're having Houston versus Oakland again. I don't even know what's going on there. We'll just type it in, St. Bona. There we go. Then we're going to have Texas here moving on past the winner of Wake Forest and Texas moving on past the winner of Wake Forest and Memphis. Which, I mean, at this point, you got to go with Wake Forest. You can't pick Memphis to win a game. Then we're going to go with Tennessee moving on past Ohio. Then we are also going to have Connecticut moving on past the winner of Florida State and Northwestern. Actually, you know what? We're going to switch it up. We'll go with Florida State moving on past Northwestern and then upsetting Connecticut there. Let's have some fun here in this bracket. But then we're going to go with Alabama here moving on past Navy. Then we're going to go with Illinois moving on past Virginia Tech. And then Kansas moving on past Vermont. And I'm just typing it in there just to, I don't know what's going on with the bracket. But then moving on to the Sweet 16, we are going to have Purdue over St. Bonaventure, Texas over Tennessee, even though I know that Texas did just lose tonight, but we'll kind of see what happens with that. So then we'll have Alabama here moving on past the winner of Florida State and Northwestern, and then we'll also have Kansas moving on past Illinois. Then for a spot in the Elite Eight, we're going to have, don't want to go with Purdue. Oh man, I guess we'll kind of see what happens. Let's go with Purdue here, moving on past Texas, and then Alabama beating Kansas. I know I had Kansas winning it all in the last bracket, but Alabama showed me some good stuff there by beating Gonzaga. But then Purdue versus Alabama, I am going to have to go with Alabama. We're going to switch it up there, Alabama. I know they did lose to Alabama, but why not have some fun here with the 3-seed Alabama? They just beat Gonzaga, so why not have some fun and just have them win it all there? Or win that region, I should say. Moving on to the top right side of the bracket, we are going to have Duke moving on past the winner of Princeton and Nicholls State. Texas Tech, I think, will be able to beat Indiana. Then we are going to have Auburn moving on past Chicago. Actually, not Chicago, Chattanooga. Let's go with Chattanooga upsetting Auburn there. Auburn, for the next 2 games, isn't going to have Bruce Pearl, so let's just have some fun with that and have Chattanooga moving on. Then we're going to have Michigan State here moving on past Iona. San Francisco falling to Ohio State. That's just a bad 11 versus 6 pairing there for San Francisco. USC over Grand Canyon, North Carolina over Loyola Chicago, and then Villanova over Wagner. Then for a spot in the Sweet 16, we're going to have Duke moving on past Texas Tech, Michigan State moving on past Chattanooga, Then we are going to have Ohio State pulling off the 6-3 over USC. And then North Carolina pulling off the 7-2 over Villanova. I think they can make it happen. Then for a spot in the Elite Eight, Michigan State over Duke. We're having some more fun with it too. And they will face the winner of Ohio State and North Carolina, which I think at this point would be North Carolina, which sets up a 4 versus 7 Elite Eight matchup. And I am going to go with Michigan State here, moving on to the Final Four. Then down here in the bottom right regional, we're going to have Gonzaga moving on past Towson, Marquette moving on past Iowa, LSU moving on past UAB, Iowa State beating UC Irvine, Seton Hall getting upset by West Virginia. I think it was Seton Hall that did beat Texas, so maybe kind of capping on that one with West Virginia beating them. But oh well. Then we're going to have Kentucky moving on past South Dakota State, Michigan past St. Mary's, and then UCLA moving on past Liberty. So then first spot in Sweet 16, Gonzaga, as much as I want to pick Marquette to upset them, you got to go with Gonzaga there. Then this matchup, I have no idea who to pick, but I'll go with the best team in the net rankings in LSU. Kentucky will beat West Virginia, and then we're going to go with UCLA beating Michigan. That would have been like a national championship matchup in the beginning of the year, but now it's a second round matchup with Michigan as a 7 seed. Then for a spot in the Elite Eight, Gonzaga moving on past LSU. Then we are going to have UCLA. As much as I want to pick Kentucky, they just haven't been battle tested too much yet. So it sets a round 3 between Gonzaga versus UCLA. Gonzaga won both, or actually UCLA, no, it was Gonzaga that's won both of them so far. But I'll go with UCLA here. Moving on, they win round 3 and they move into the Final Four. So we have Baylor versus Alabama. Baylor, I think, will win that one there. They just haven't lost yet, so they can't prove me wrong. Then Michigan State versus UCLA. We are going to go with UCLA with Johnny Juzang winning that one. And then Baylor versus UCLA in the national title game. We are going to go with UCLA winning the national championship. I think this team is set up for success. We'll kind of see what happens with it, see if they're able to win the national championship, but we'll have some fun with it. So thank you guys for watching. I really hope you enjoyed it. Let me know your own comments and predictions in the comments section below. Thank you guys for watching. Really hope you enjoyed it. I know it's a bit of a longer video, but I will see you all later.